Hello my dear friends and welcome to StudyIQ. I am Joycey Joy and today in this lecture we will discuss about climate change and India's nutritional security. Now coming to the issue or the current affair, the climate change and increasing global warming are increasingly posing risk to India's food and nutritional security. So this issue needs urgent prioritization by the government, by the policy makers, and also should dedicate resources for sustainable and public health friendly measures. So this is the current affair, and based on this we will understand how is climate change and nutritional security connected, and what is the status of India and what should be done in order to overcome this issue. But before we begin, this is our channel StudyIQ and we are providing pen drive courses for various competitive examinations including SSC bank courses, UPSC optionals, SSC JE courses, teaching examinations, railway courses, defense examinations, RBI grade B, UGC NET, UPSC Civil Services Examination, CLAT exams, state PSCs, and also for various professional courses. You can visit our website www.studyiq.com for more details, or you can call to any of these numbers for more information. Now let's come back to the topic. Let us first understand what are the threats. One which was published by IPCC, that is Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and second one by WHO or the World Health Organization. So let us come to the first report, the one published by IPCC or the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So according to the IPCC reports, human activities have led to a 1 degree Celsius rise in the temperatures above the pre-industrial levels. So this can reach up to 1.5 degrees Celsius between 2030 to 2052 if the temperatures continues to increase at the current rate. Now, carbon dioxide is the primary greenhouse gas, and the atmospheric concentration of CO2 or the carbon dioxide, which is a primary greenhouse gas, has increased to 410 ppm, that is parts per million, from 280 ppm parts per million in the pre-industrial times. So this is the highlight in the report which is published by IPCC. Now if you want to know more about the IPCC reports, I have made a separate lecture on IPCC reports on global warming and climate change, which is available on our channel StudyIQ. So please find the lecture for more details on IPCC reports on global warming and climate change. Now coming back to the second report, that is the WHO estimates, the World Health Organization estimates. So World Health Organization has estimated that approximately 250,000 deaths annually between 2030 and 2050 could be due to climate change. So between these 20 years, around 250,000 deaths would be due to an increase in the temperature, that is global warming and climate change. And in this report, WHO highlights that, and within this 250,000, a majority of the population will be from the poorest countries, from the poorest sections who suffer the highest rates of undernutrition. So those people who suffer the highest rates of undernutrition are the most vulnerable category towards climate change and global warming. So these are the report highlights of IPCC and WHO. Now coming to India's vulnerability. India's vulnerability can be divided into two important subcategories. The first one, agricultural vulnerability, and second one, nutrition vulnerability. Now coming to agricultural vulnerability, Indian agriculture and India's food production is highly vulnerable to climate change. This is because the agricultural sector in India is still sensitive towards monsoon variability. Around 65% of India's total agricultural land or the crop area is rain-fed or is completely dependent on monsoon rainfall for their irrigation purposes. Now coming to the agricultural sector in India, more than half of Indian population is directly dependent on agricultural sector for its means of livelihood, and a majority of the population is also employed in the agricultural sector. So any impact of climate change and global warming on the agricultural sector will have impacts on the livelihood of millions of people and also on the food security of the country, because it will impact the food production in the country. So the agricultural sector, which sustains India's rural economy and the food security of the country, will be in stress with increased rates of global warming and climate change. Now coming to the nutritional security of the country. India is already one of the top rankers in multiple forms of malnutrition. And there are multiple reasons or various factors contributing to poor nutritional status of India's population. So one reason is food scarcity, increased consumption of refined cereals, poverty, etc. So on the top of this, adverse variables like the climate change, pollution, global warming, etc. can further worsen the scenario. So this will result into an adverse public health nutrition indicator. Now coming to the nutrition vulnerability in India, only 1 out of 10 children in India is getting adequate nutrition. So 9 out of 10 children are undernourished in India. Now coming to nutrition and climate change link. So we have seen that Indian agriculture is highly dependent on monsoons for its irrigation purposes. So an monsoon dependent agricultural sector will suffer with increased rates of global warming and worsening climate change situations. So this will impact the food security of the country. The food production from the country will come down. So already the country is largely dependent on imports for fulfilling the nutritional needs of the population. So a reduction in the agricultural productivity in the country will boost the demand for imports in order to meet both the food security or the food requirements plus the nutritional requirements of the country. So increase in the imports will have multiple impacts. First, it will reduce the affordability of food grains. Now when the affordability comes down, it means that the prices increases. So therefore inflation would go up, and this will make food unaccessible for a majority of the population. So undernutrition status of India will worsen. Secondly, it will impact the BOP or the balance of payment situation of the country by increasing the imports over the exports. And thirdly, the agricultural sector in the country will be under stress. So it will have larger implications. So we can say that undernutrition or increased nutrient demands and reduced nutrient absorption, that is the situation of undernutrition, and this can also increase the risk of non-communicable diseases. So it can increase the risk of non-communicable diseases like the hypertension, diabetes, cardiovascular problems, etc. So this can be due to nutrient deficiencies. And another impact is the dilution effect. So what is meant by this dilution effect? It means that with increasing levels of carbon dioxide, that is CO2, will result to lesser vitamins and minerals per unit of yield. So per unit of yield will have lesser content of vitamins and minerals. So these are all some of the links or impacts of climate change on nutritional security of the country. Now what can be done? First of all, the policy attention must focus to address these issues. So this will require funding or dedication of resources towards meeting the challenges of climate change. So funding needs to be earmarked for designing, rolling out of modern climate change resistant infrastructure and technology. So this should include early warning systems to the farmers in order to produce sufficient food and in order to avoid a situation of food scarcity. And traders needs to store food adequately in order to supply during extreme weather events. So this can reduce the dependency on import and the adverse consequences of imports. Also, sustainable, resilient and effective or efficient ways of producing, trading, distributing and consuming agricultural commodities and food products should be adopted. So this should also include reduction in food wastage. So not only in production but also trading, distribution and consumption should be managed properly. And also food technologies should be devised in order to store food and in order to process food. And strengthening the capacity of public health professionals are also very important in order to deal with the situation. And proper investment should take place in social protection schemes and lively security mechanisms. So overall we can say that the linkage between climate change and nutritional security of the country calls for more policy action. For example, the recently launched Poshan Abhiyan is one such example of a policy action. You can find the PDF of this video on my Facebook page, and for any queries regarding your preparations, you can write to me at joyce.studyiq@gmail.com. Thank you.